What's up, Zox fam? So we got to get into the tiering for our tier list for our general late game PVE, okay? We haven't touched this in quite some time. Not only are we going to be doing the adjustments, but we also got to place the 4 new units in the game that have happened within this time frame. And of course, with how we're going to be doing this tier list, I really want to emphasize just really reiterating what works in slower comps and what works in faster comps, because there's so many different things, even in my own progression, that I think I had to acknowledge was, one, hey, some of these things are really purely gear reliant. Some of these things are lattice investment reliant. And even some might even be a little bit more about if you are able to 6-star them. And we're being honest, most players are still trying to truck along and they don't have a ton of perfect lattice to do some of the investment things that people are talking about right now. Like, hey, 5 out of 5 this unit. Ain't happening, okay? So that's the thing. Again, I think we want to acknowledge that, and I am going to be, again, still brutal and honest with where units are, in my opinion, but I'm always open to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions. Now, jumping into our Triple S, we got to be real brutal here, all right? So we're going to be doing our first shift here, and it's going to be Leon. Excuse me, we're going to be shifting her down to S tier, okay? Now, the biggest thing with Leon is that Leon is still one of the only AoE red units in the game that you can actually use for damage. So she's still going to be good in that regard. But when we start talking about burst nuking, the thing is that if you're running a Leon, you have to be conscious of the type of comp that you're running her in. So the higher up you go, they start to mitigate turn manipulation. And then on top of that, she's not going to be the most optimal anymore for nuking, right? So she starts to become kind of like sub DPS-y, you know, when you start looking at how she's applied or how she's working in a lot of content. The other thing I also noticed too is that you have to run Leon in a slower comp. And here's the thing that I noticed that a lot of players are doing. For a lot of speed clear comps, they're not buff, like super buff heavy. They're really, honestly, a lot of times more debuff heavy. And that is actually kind of like, in a way, mitigating the potential damage that you could be seeing from Leon, because in slower comps, you're able to actually amplify her a lot more, because typically in slower comps, you're going to have more buffs to keep your team alive, to sustain your team, etc. And she actually is amplified off of having more buffs. What I notice is a lot of people are trying to run her in like debuff teams, and it's like, well, I mean, she does damage, but she doesn't do her max peak or potential because she's meant to be in team comps where she's being buffed, right? And that's something that's literally in her skill 1. So despite that, I will say, even with the shift, this is still going to be a character that you're going to still be using if you can at least provide her the utility to make her better, right? So giving her those buffs, I really think do matter. And again, she is still 1-on-1 when it comes down to what she does specifically. So she's still going to have value, right? Hellkid, we're going to be shifting down to double S here. I feel like with what Hellkid brings to the table, Hellkid still provides the Shroud Barrier, which is immunity and shield. He has the attack break, and the other thing is too is he can stun. Now, the other thing I think that's actually really important to understand or to note with a character like Hellkid, when we're talking about general content clearing, he's going to be a unit that provides you way more utility in slower comps, right? One of the things that I think a lot of players are now starting to shift into, like I mentioned with the Leon, same thing with Hellkid. He's going to provide you more security for when you're running slow. When you're trying to do speed comps, these units tend to not work as well as you would like them to unless they are being geared with the next set of gear, or like infernal gear, or they're latticed all the way. But these are things that not every player, and I would argue most of the player base, does not have yet. So that's going to be one of those things where you're going to be typically seeing him in much slower comps, just for the sake of the sustain that he's going to be providing, so that you can extend or keep those fights going much longer, right? Now, Ramoka, okay? Still cream of the crop, in my opinion, but I'm actually going to be dropping her to double S tier. Now, hear me out. I know some people go, but she's the best for the speed clear. Yes, she is. But here's the thing that you run into when it comes down to characters like Ramoka. Ramoka is a 1-to-1 in the respective content that she does, which is literally Doki Doki. Now, we could argue in some scenarios like PvP, but again, this isn't about PvP. When we're talking about generally PvE content, you will really only see Ramoka in Doki Doki. You're not going to see her in really honestly anything else, especially once you push into the later Hells and to Inferno. I mean, Doki Doki's where she lives. So granted, I love this character. I use this character for all of my Doki Doki stuff. I even use her into PvP. But we have to be honest when we talk about the actual utility of the character, where the character is more visible. And I will say that when we're talking about most of the content at this point, you're going to see Ramoka heavily used. And I still think she's cream of the crop when it comes down to Doki Doki. But that's literally one piece of content out of like 50 other things that you have to do within the game. Now, respectively so, I will say for Ethernet Rally and for just anything like green attribute, she's still going to be insane for DPS. Absolutely, right? But I think that that's one of the things where we're starting to look at like highest damage output. Hers is stipulated behind kills. If she doesn't get the kill, then there's that. There's other units that still do high damage and they don't have to kill you, right? So that's just kind of that. But I do want to identify that she's still good. I'm still going to put her at the front of double S. So yeah, that's just kind of, my opinion there. Now, next up, we got to shift down Biotin. All right. So we're going to be bringing Biotin down here to double S tier. I feel like for what it's worth, she's always going to be compared directly to Lily. It just is what it is. And if we have to pick between the two, you're obviously going to still pick Lily, right? So of course, again, it does not diminish the value that she has with the cooldowns, the crit damage up, the attack, the revive. Like she has so much value, but her stipulation is that she actually provides that on auto to the unit with the lowest cooldown. Now that's something that is like, the highest cooldown. So that's something that like you have to kind of consider with a character like her, is that like her manipulation or how you're able to get her to manipulate her ability is a little bit more, it's just a little bit more tedious, right? Versus like Lily is like whoever has the highest attack, which is super easy to manipulate, right? Now, of course, with that, Biotin's value is still extremely high when we're talking about speed clears. But I also will say that one thing that I've at least noticed is that most speed clear comps have really high gear thresholds and specifically really high speed. And if not a character that is able to manipulate, having Biotin be on the team, because like say for example you're looking at like a Doki Doki team in Inferno and there's a Biotin in there, that's because one, Mio's on the team and Mio is literally so fast that she's rotating the enemy so that Biotin doesn't get touched, because otherwise if Biotin gets hit she just like straight up faints. So I just want to kind of mention that, but Biotin still is a really, really solid unit. And I definitely don't think that her value, like especially for her to not be a LD, her value is still extremely high. Klaus, all right, Klaus, I'm keeping in triple S. There's like no way to debate her value. Again, when we're talking about one of the best damage ampers, debuffers in the game, she is one of those characters. And that's one of the things that I have to say, like when it comes down to a character like Klaus, that is a character that you will hear a lot of players say like, man, I wish I had a Klaus, right? Like she definitely does make a difference, and I'd be lying to you if I said she didn't. So yeah, she stays exactly where she's at. There's like zero reason to move her. The hacking and progress is busted. She has the turn manipulation with a redistribute. She's really, really good, right? It's no debating that. Freya, okay? And you know what's crazy? I always feel like there's like this back and forth debate about Freya. But in my opinion, I feel like Freya is still triple S. I mean, like there's people that'll argue like other characters, but like to be real with you, Freya is like probably one of the lowest investment cost units in the game for support. And she provides so much value from being on the team. Just her being there allows you to get turn manipulation from buffing and from debuffing your opponents. She then is able to provide an attack up, defense up. You have the nightmare for you to be able to get more damage. You have that also built in with life steal. Like there's just so much stuff that's in her kit. This character, no reason to shift her. We're keeping her there. Ling Lao, okay? Ling Lao is definitely another character that I think a lot of people are seeing at this endgame spectrum that they gave us for free that is holding her weight, okay? This is easily the best healer in the game, and not even just because of her healing potency, but it's because of what she also is bringing to the table, which is the purification. She's working in some of the hardest dungeons in the game from Aurora. You can still see her in some of the harder shell fights. She's really, really good, and that well prayer is probably like one of the best things about her. Reason why a lot of people will probably tell you to invest into her skill 1, because well prayer is absolutely nuts. And even just in terms of how she's able to do her job, she is definitely a character that I feel like personally doesn't require as much investment as some of her counterpart SSR units in the game. So she's still really, really good. Heinrich, okay? Heinrich is still triple S. I mean, what are we doing here, right? Like, I think a lot of people, like, they thought he was going to just, like, fall off. But I feel like for what it's worth, I mean, dude, he sub DPS, he debuffs. With the crit damage up, crit damage up, he has the chance of increasing your chances of critting, and then he can block buffs. Like, the dude is, like, insane. The heal block on top of that is just kind of insult to injury. Like, he's absolutely insane. So I feel like there's, like, zero reason to move a character like him. He just provides so much utility. Like, there's, like, really no need to move him, honestly, right? I feel like he's extremely, extremely busted. Doki Doki. All right. So Doki Doki. I got to do my little cough there. Doki Doki, in my opinion, I think is still extremely underrated. But for what it's worth, we are going to be dropping her down to double S. Right. I will say, though, that in much slower comps, Doki Doki ends up becoming like queen, because if you're trying to say, like, do like a slow, Doki Doki run, for example, or anything really that's slower, Doki Doki is probably one of the best units in the game to handle dealing with debuffs. I feel like that's one of the things that, like, when you start looking at like a character that, like, if I had the ability to skill her up, it would be insane. I think if most players had the ability to really scale up a Doki Doki's value shoots up so much just because she's able to just constantly keep removing things off of your team. And if she has a built-in, like, damage amp, you know what? Now I'm talking about it, I might not even move her, because, like, really, when you think about it, like, especially for those that are doing longer form fights, like, Doki Doki provides something that, like, now I'm thinking about it, in long form fights is kind of busted, which is, like, the fact that she's able to give you basically the ability to have the data stream stack where you're getting extra speed and extra damage. So she actually makes it easier for you to do longer form fights. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna keep her up here. Forget all that. Forget what I was just about to say. Yeah, hey, I didn't know you guys were gonna start laughing at that part, but, like, listen, forget what I was about to say. Never mind, scratch that. You ever have a moment where you start talking to yourself about something, you're like, wait a minute, I'm over here devaluing this unit. No, we're keeping her in triple S, because I will say that again, staying true to fast and slow comps, she's definitely insane. For those more sustained oriented team comps, I'm not going to diminish her value, and I don't want to give the wrong impression about that character at all. She's definitely extremely good for that. And you know what? I'm going to refer to somebody that you guys can actually see a lot of this from. Shout out to the homie True Evil. Make sure you check out his channel. He is literally, when I say, like, he's using her in almost everything. Like, the fact of, like, the fact that people are trying to, like, write this character off to that degree, I just don't think makes sense, especially if you don't have the gear, the lattice, or the units to do a lot of these speed clears that you're seeing people do. I think Doki Doki is amazing. Let me not even, like, sit here and act like I don't think that, right? So there we go. We're going to keep her there. Lily, okay? Obviously, there's no reason to push her. I mean, this is a unit that everybody in the game is kind of crying for. They want her. They're like, please, give me her, right? And honestly, I hope at some point they actually give us a rate up banner. That'd be pretty cool. But for what it's worth, I mean, man, when we're talking about rotation on your DPS, damage amping, cooldowns, I mean, the assist attack, I mean, she's able to pull, like, certain levels of damage out of a unit that no other character can pull out of another character right now. And that's whoever she's paired up with. Whoever has the highest attack, she's going to make them the most optimal at whatever it is that they're doing, which is typically doing DPS. I mean, hey, Lily is what she is, so can't knock her, right? Dinah, all right? So Dinah, I will say, for me, generally, I feel like is fault. And I would give her the double S right now, right? And I really feel like, for what it's worth, Dinah is still up there in terms of damage amp. Like, if you're not doing something with Kloss, then you're absolutely going to use Dinah. I think that that's, like, a fair take there. But I will say that when it comes down to, like, how consistent she is versus Kloss, she's not as consistent. Like, I feel like sometimes the vulnerability and the erosion sometimes doesn't land, and that can, like, drastically shift how well she performs in the given thing that you're doing. So I think that that's, like, you know, pretty fair. But yeah, I just think that, again, for damage amp, she's still one of the best. Like, I mean, she's really, honestly, the only option you have if you don't have Kloss. So again, because Kloss does exist, we are going to drop her down, which I think is fair. But again, still really, really good. Now, next up, we have Gray, okay? Gray is going to shift into double S for me at this point in the game. I still feel like Gray is extremely underrated. A lot of people write him off, but this man can still do Inferno dungeons like Doki Doki, for example. Yeah, you're going to see Gray in there. And Gray actually is still respected. I would say still deals respectable damage. And that definitely gets overrated as well. Underrated. So I definitely think that that's something that, when we're talking about the value that he brings to the table, this guy still holds a lot of weight for a free character on your account. So I definitely don't want to diminish or take away from that. Still with the crit rate up buff, lowering your gear requirements. The defense break is still huge. I still think that personally, this is an absolutely insane character. Now, Valerian, all right? So Valerian right here, we're keeping her. There's no reason to shift her. She's still one of the best sustained units in the game, period. Her Hazy Dream, what I call the Dream Bubble, is super busted. Not only that, though, but you're also getting the basic buff effect, which will fill in buffs that you don't have, which is huge. And then on top of that, you're able to get the extra shield. She's built really, really slow, so you give your allies more and more and more shield as you go. I feel like she is still one of just like a mainstay if you have her. I completely get why they put her in a pack for $1, or after you topped up, you got her for $1, right? It was I get why. She's absolutely busted. So I feel like for what it's worth, just even the HP balancing, she makes it really, really easy to also manage targeting, because a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of content or enemies in the game that will target according to who has the lowest HP threshold. And when she balances out things, that actually will normalize it so that your targeting can potentially change. So it's not just emphasizing that one target too. So she's really, really good. So again, that's Valerian and the value that she brings to the table, which for what it's worth, I think is extremely good, right? Now, the homie Kraken, okay? Kraken, I think at this point, I'm going to be putting him, especially as we're looking at in-game stuff, I'm going to be putting him in the S tier for right now. I feel like for what it's worth, he still does give you a ton of value. The CC freeze, I think, is in the pushback. With that, I think it's also extremely powerful. But you start running into a lot of content where turn meter pushback just gets mitigated, right? And when you start looking at your module dungeons, are you using Kraken in there? Yes, in Doki Doki, but that's one piece of content out of a lot of the others. Kraken will still maybe see some limelight in things like Shadow Flame Hoyan, but really for what it's worth, I would say that Kraken's value definitely shifts according to what type of comp you're running. If you're running a team comp that's much faster, you probably won't be using Kraken, but if it's much slower, then you'll probably have Kraken in it, right? So I think that that's something extremely important to note. The Ting is going to still be up here, right? No matter what we want to say or do, the Ting is up there, right? He's still one of the hardest hitting single target damagers. I think third, maybe fourth now. I don't know, but he's up there in the game. But yeah, the Ting's value is extremely high. I mean, he also has the ability to self increase or enhance his own damage with his own vulnerability proc and a skill 1. One unit that I would say from the SRs that's definitely you probably want a 5.5, 4 or 4.55 or even 5.55 this unit. So I think that that's really important to note. So again, for what it's worth, yeah, the Ting I definitely still think is cream of the crop for a lot of this game, right? Now, we got Chiaki the Echo. Now, again, for the much slower comps, I feel like Chiaki the Echo, considering that you have counterparts or things for example, for rotation, you have the Freyas, you got the, you got other options, right, for movement. You got Mio, you got other units that you can use for it, right? I feel like for me personally, Chiaki the Echo, I think I'm not going to drop her. I'm still going to keep her in double S. I feel like she's at the bottom of double S for me right now. I feel like for what it's worth, if you don't have any other options, Chiaki the Echo is still going to be great for movement. Maybe on some slower comps, especially the higher up you go. And not really because the teams are slow, but just because of the fact that it just allows her to be able to ramp a lot easier. The other thing is investment on Chiaki the Echo is actually really important. If you don't have her invested, you don't see nearly as much value of being able to mitigate turn meter manipulation, which is really important. There are some slower comps where you might still see her working your way up into Inferno and like Terra Matan. Still really great rotationary unit in general. She still has the attack up buff. So I still feel like she has some pretty solid value. But when you start talking about like, you know, comparatively to like a Freya, right? I feel like Freya, even out the box, just provides so much. Granted, I will say the biggest perk to Chiaki the Echo is she's a burst pusher, which I think is one of the things that is like, you know, kind of underrated when you start like talking about like pushing and how units are able to push in the game. Yeah, burst pushes are like pretty like valuable in my opinion. Now, moving on, we have our character here, Rahu. Rahu, we're going to actually be shifting down. I'm going to actually be shifting Rahu into double S, right? Now, I feel like, again, reiterating a couple of different things here. Rahu is going to be extremely good for slow clearing comps, right? If you're trying to do Doki Doki slow, he's going to be good. You might even see him in some... you might even see him in some other comps. Like, for example, if you're doing things like Terra Matan, you will probably see a Rahu in a much lower comp, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can basically pull out of a character like this. Him on like sets like Bramble is really busted. I think it just all depends on, again, what you have accessible to you. I still think that Rahu, for him to be the type of unit he is, a defensive layered unit, is still extremely good. So I don't want to diminish any of that value. There's just too much content that proves that a unit like this can be extremely valuable, especially if you made certain decisions to focus more on PvP, which I think that that's something that, you know, players have to kind of think about. There's some players that went for more of the route of let me build more things to cater to PvP versus those that are like, hey, I'm going to build more things to cater to PvE, right? So that's that. Now, Messiah, we're keeping here. I mean, still one of the top cleavers, ignore defensors, invincibility units. If he kills you, he gets more invincibility. Like, there's no reason to not like keep him here. Like, Messiah is just the GOAT, right? He's really, really good. Full investment character, but really, really good nonetheless. And he generally can do all content, right? Like, that's just how it is. Rosa, another full investment character. Again, I think she is still going to be a unit that, for what it's worth, for me personally, I still feel like Rosa is like, I'm gonna be the one to say it. Like, I feel like she kind of gets a little bit overhyped in some scenarios. Not that she's not good at what she does, but I think it kind of gets written off like, hey, you can just slap Rosa in the team. She just works. Like, I think like one of the things that constantly gets missed in translation or just doesn't really get depicted, it seems like to a lot of players that I at least come across, is that this character requires a certain type of setup. She requires a certain level of investment. And that's something that's really important. It's not just so, you know, simple like, oh, she just works as soon as you put her on the team. It's the same thing I've argued with Messiah. It's like, hey, if you're going to use this unit, yes, he can do most content, but you got to really build and commit to building that character. And when we start talking about committing to a character and building them long term, not every player is in that position, right? So again, if you are one of those players that have decided to do that, I think that, of course, she's definitely going to be giving you really solid value. But it's one of those things where it also kind of depends on what the remainder or the rest of your team is. It's kind of like saying like, hey, do you have a Lily? Do you have that? Like, you know, it's that, right? So I still feel like, again, we're going to leave her here for right now. But she's always been borderline double S, triple S for me. I just feel like all it's going to take is one character to come and yeah, that that's gonna shift real fast, right? So we'll leave her here at the bottom of it, right? Now going into our double S, all right. So we obviously got all these characters that shifted down. So we're going to be starting out with Viper, okay? Now, Viper, I will say, in my opinion, I definitely think is extremely underrated. He gets kind of written off as like, he's just this unit that just like kind of dispel. Like, dude, he is probably one of the most consistent dispellers in the game besides Heinrich, right? And this is one of the things that I think that, again, I'm not going to be shifting him down or up at this point. I still feel like he holds the exact same weight. He's literally, for what it's worth, he does his job respectively as like probably the second best dispeller in the game besides Heinrich. I feel like for what it's worth, you're going to see him in a lot of comps because a lot of people don't have Heinrich. And even when we're talking about just the fact that he's not just dispelling, but he's also reducing how much crit damage you take, right? Like the chances of you getting critted against, that's another thing that he's helping mitigate. So I think that that is so much more than that. He's also debuffing the opponents with attack down and speed down. So he's making sure you're getting hit with less damage and they're not rotating as fast. So it's literally some of the things like when we're even looking at Nico Nana, he has the most optimal kit for it. So like, again, his value, bar none, I think like is definitely just speaks for itself. Tsukiyomi, okay? Tsukiyomi is a fairly interesting character because I feel like that's one of the characters in the game that if you like Lily, you kind of sort of like Tsukiyomi, right? Like I feel like again, I'm not going to be shifting her. I still feel like personally when we're talking about you know, those that don't have a Lily, she's going to be one of the like next best advanced units in the game. Now, considering though that she is more tanky, so you'll definitely see Suki in certain setups. Some might be slow. I've seen her in a couple of faster clears, but for what it's worth, I definitely feel like Suki is definitely extremely underrated. I think people are also forgetting the fact that like a lot of players don't have skill cooldowns, right? She helps out with that. And so that's one of the things that I think that kind of gives characters like her value, in my opinion. She's able to provide something to characters that I feel like, you know, when you're just talking about, again, if you don't have that LD, she's going to be one of those choices that you can pick up. And then she's tanky herself. She has turn meter manipulation. She's really, really good. So I definitely think that, you know, again, I feel like the value that Tsukiyomi brings to the table is extremely underrated and definitely needs to be talked about a lot more. 1,000%. Now, next up on the list we have Kazuyo Kazumi, I think this is Kazuyo. Either one, right? There's two of them, but we're gonna be dropping her down. And I actually am probably gonna be putting her into probably A tier for right now, because I feel like for what it's worth, like granted she does have the cooldown, but I think like even for some of the other units that I'm gonna mention for that, she doesn't provide really much else to really justify putting her in the team. I think also her attribute, like depending on what you're doing, like if it's a 4-man comp, it's like, do I really want to put Kazumi in there? Or, you know, if you're doing even a 5-man, it's like if I'm going for a unit, like say I'm doing something like Aurora, I can slot in a unit that like maybe cools down, but also then provides something else, right? So her main thing, and like even for the other portions of her kit, is also to reduce cooldowns. And if you're not going against anything that is allowing you to do that, then it's kind of like a dead skill. So I feel like, again, we're going to be shifting her down, which, I mean, for what it's worth is what it is, right? Marvel, we're going to be keeping in his respective slot. I feel like, yeah, Marvel doesn't really shift for me, to be honest. I still feel like, again, he's one of 2 characters in the entire game that's able to do an AoE resistance down, which in my opinion gives him pretty high value, right? Like I think that like for what it's worth, AoE resistance down is still extremely good. It lowers, again, how much effect accuracy is required for you to do something, right? So that's something that I think is really, really nice. The pushback is still good generally. Doesn't really work as well as you would like it to, though, in some of the higher stages where, like, you know, turn meter pushback gets mitigated, but it's still going to be something that can still work in a lot of the shell dungeons and stuff like that. So I think that for what it's worth, yeah, he's still extremely high value in my opinion. Now, Tiamat, okay? Tiamat, for me personally, I think that a well-built Tiamat is still up here, right? I honestly, yeah, I don't see any reason to shift her. I think like part of the issue that really has been a thing for Tiamat is really been more so the investment. But if you can invest and build her properly, she's still really disgusting. I think that for what it's worth, Tiamat is now what I would consider a high investment character. She's no longer low investment. I think before it was like pretty easy to build her. Now it's much harder to build her. But if you're able to actually build this unit, kind of the same argument I can make with Rosa. It's like, well, if you build her, then she actually performs. And then also knowing how to use her properly, I think is also really important. So yeah, we're not going to be shifting Tiamat at all. With Sania, we're not going to be shifting her either. I still feel like she's actually really good at what she does. Not as oppressive, but she's still really high up there. Cleansing, healing, reviving. I think that that's something that she brings to the table that's still really, really good. And even when you fight her in like PVE stuff, dude, she's like mad annoying to fight. She's still super annoying. So yeah, we're gonna be keeping her. We're gonna be keeping her right there. Obel, we're gonna be keeping there as well. Still providing the dot. We have the stun, which I would say like for slower comps. A lot of you guys seen what I was doing with him. He works extremely well in a lot of the shell dungeons, especially where he's able to have, he's not disadvantaged, but being able to lock the ads on the side, still being able to provide dot. Dot, again, is still one of the highest forms of damage in the game, especially in-game. So you pair him up with the right characters, he still is going to be providing you great, I would say not only control, but also potential damage, right? So that's something I think that, we're going to be keeping him in double S here. Next, we have Kachi, okay? We're going to be shifting Kachi down, okay? Just to be a little bit more realistic to the later push. I still feel like, again, when you go through the list of what options you have, Kachi is like one of the last options, but still a solid option if you need to get something done for his respective job, which is being able to stun. He has pushback. He does provide cooldown. Like, this dude's actually like pretty good, right? So I think that for what it's worth, we're going to be shifting him down to S tier, but he's definitely on the latter portion of like who you might pick first out of your options. Unless you are looking for a low investment choice, then he would probably be one of your people that you would go for. Mia, okay? For me personally, I think personally, Mia, I'm gonna be the one to say it. She's gonna be triple S for me, right? I've been using this character so much, and she was one of the latter units that was added into the game, in like the wave before the wave for the release. And I gotta say, dude, like Mia is nuts. Like the fact that she has the buff extension, debuff, debuff reduction. She has the ability to cool down not only you, right, as the character, but also the shell companion that they have equipped on them. She's absolutely busted, in my opinion. I feel like, again, for what it's worth, the more investment you actually give this character, the better she's gonna be. And even out of the box, I paired her up even like with Ling Lao, and they like do not like conflict each other at all. They actually are really great being paired together, which is kind of like indifferent when you're talking about two healers, like extremely strong or potent healers being put together, but they are bringing so many different things to the table that just make them work. Like you get the immunity from the Ling Lao, but then you have, like even the shield that comes from characters like Mia. She's able to provide healing based off of her HP, whereas Ling Lao's is based off of like the users, right? So there's like certain things that are different about them, but they both provide such great utility. And I feel like Mia is up there for that cooldown, specifically in the buff extension. I think it's just like extremely potent with all the other stuff that she does. So that's going to be my take there on Mia. Next, we have Lilith, okay? Now, Lilith, I feel like is in like this really weird spot. We're going to be putting her in S tier as well. And the thing is that I feel like for Lilith, she still does the Graceful Mischief extremely well. It does require some investment for her to be able to pop that off. I will say when we're talking about the fact that she's able to still provide like the stun, which is going to be great for like things like Doki Doki. Slower comps, I think she's able to provide much, much better utility, because if you're trying to go fast, it's not going to be nearly as much value damage-wise that she's going to be providing, but she still has the pushback, which is extremely potent. So I think that, again, we want to reiterate and still hyper fixate on the fact that she's still usable. It just requires you to kind of know where she's usable at. So I feel like that's kind of that for Lilith. Now, my boy Born, okay, I was trying to hold out hope for him. I was like, maybe we'll find something, within the release that makes him a little bit more usable. But I think that, again, he falls into one of the issues that could very well change or shift as we get new things added into the game. He doesn't have a lot of pairings. So we're going to be pushing him to S tier. I feel like Born, for what it's worth, can do and deal a lot of damage. But I think one of the things is that he doesn't really have what I find to be the lifeline of this game is duo pairings, right? Like, who can you pair this character up with? I think one of his only pairings he really has that's like as optimal as you can possibly get it is Tsukiyomi, really, right? So for what it's worth, I feel like Born is great as a selfish, self-sustained unit. Like, he's very selfish, but when we start talking about other things, team synergies and things of that nature, he definitely is a unit that I say just kind of falls down. He really is just purely a damage dealer. Like, granted, he can buff strips, he can ignore passive, stuff like that, which can be valuable. But I feel like for what it's worth, when you start trying to combine him with other people, he just kind of falls into this one singular, like, kind of slot by himself. So, yeah, that's just kind of where we're at with him. Next, we have RC77. Okay, so RC77, I did 6-star him just to kind of like try him out to see if he could do some stuff. We were able to get him to work in the Hell. I'm pretty sure he can work into Inferno, but this is still going to be a character that I feel like, for what it's worth, if we're talking about general content clearing, I wouldn't necessarily tell somebody to go out of their way to 6-star him. I just think that, like, when you start, again, talking about general content clearing, he's not going to be able to be utilized everywhere. He can still work. Again, if we were talking about PvP, that would be a whole nother thing because this guy is actually pretty fast. But for what it's worth, I definitely think that shifting him down to S tier is pretty fair. For what it's worth, that's just where he's at. He does have, the ability to stun. He has pushback. Dude has debuff extension. He has an accuracy buff to increase his own accuracy. Like, it's a lot of things that he does. Like, I feel like if he would have had like an AoE accuracy buff to provide to the whole party, that might actually would have shot his value up some. Now, Dorothy, regular Dorothy. Okay, we gotta talk about regular Dorothy because regular Dorothy, in my opinion, I still think is up here. Like the craziest thing is that I think, like, when you start looking at like potential healers and even like in-game value, she's still up here. Like, for sustain, I think that like Dorothy definitely is underrated. And I just think it's just because people don't have like the good gear yet. Like, she does require some insanely good gear for her to be able to work at the spectrum to keep her in double S, in my opinion. But I will say that, like, early investment, light character, excess healing turns into shield. You put her on like Fortissimo, she can honestly pop off, right? So I think that that's kind of that. For what it's worth, we're gonna be keeping her there. Now, next up is Kachi the Guard. I don't care what anybody says. I'm pushing him up. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Okay, Kachi the Guard is getting the push beyond measure here, right? And here's why. Because I think that when we start talking about something that has become a literal requirement, even so much so that right now, currently with the developers, I'm currently in the talks of trying to push them to give this character for free to everyone. Kachi the Guard provides something that I think, even if you are doing a faster clear, he helps out tremendously. It is the combination of immunity and defense up. I feel like that combination is just so necessary for 90% of the content that you have to face in in-game. And the crazy thing is, it doesn't matter if it's slow, it doesn't matter if it's fast, because he can be built either way. And the craziest thing is that all you really need is a skill 3 invested. Kachi the Guard is going to be able to safeguard your team. And the thing is that on top of that, he's also one of the few units, if not, I think maybe one of the only, maybe one of two, that has a crit rate down debuff. And it works so seamlessly into his kit because you have he has speed down even in his kit, which is huge, but you have the immunity defense up. You have the fact that he can like scale that with the effect accuracy in his kit. Then he has the pushback. Then he has the skill 1, which can do the crit rate down. Like, that is just such an insane combination, and it really helps out significantly with some of these hard hitting bosses. Like, Kachi the Guard, in my opinion, is triple S. So we're putting him up there for right now. Now, next up, we got Veronica. Now, again, a lot of people were sleeping on the girl Veronica. I still will say that Veronica does kind of fall into kind of like that singular dungeon. For what it's worth, you definitely will see her in like Terra Matan teams. Will you really see her in anything else? Not really, which is the reason why we're going to be shifting her down to S tier. When we're, just kind of talking about like, potential sustainers and like, kind of like being able to prevent death. She's kind of the other alternative outside of Valerian. But the one thing is with her is that she does require you to have, a little bit better gear on her, which is okay, right? I feel like even when you're talking about like general usage, Valerian still has more and higher general usage because one, her attribute and how she does her stuff. So there's just kind of that. But outside of that, I still feel like, again, Veronica is still a solid character nonetheless. And because she can do the Soul Ward AoE, it still ends up being extremely high in value, right? So outside of that, I think that fills up all of our double S tier for right now. Let's go ahead and let's shift down to our S tier. All right. So the very, very first one that we're going to be shifting here is going to be the boy Chloros. All right, so we're gonna be shifting Chloros up. He goes up to double S tier. I mean, the dude's value shot up. His buff, that was one thing we weren't able to test until the release. They did buff his damage, and that was able to shoot him up enough to where now he's one of the mainstays in things like Terra Matan. Same reason why I wouldn't put him in triple S and I'll keep him in double S is the same reason why Ramoka's in double S for here, is because again, when you're talking about like other areas you might use them, it's really going to be in Terra Matan, right? So again, not to say that there isn't other content that you can use them in, but it's just when you're talking about that in-game spectrum, you're just going to be seeing a tons of Chloroses in Terra Matan on average, right? But again, for what it's worth, what is it called? I don't want to call it Grim Reaper. It's basically his ability where he's able to proc. If anybody hits, then they basically can force him to S3. That's what really gives him tons of values because you're going to be hitting so much. So you put him with a ton of multi-hitters, you're going to be getting that ability off a ton, right? Now, from there, moving on, we got Victor. We're going to be keeping Victor here. I feel like for what it's worth, like Victor, yeah, I mean, nothing's really changed, right? Like, so he's kind of where he's at. His damage hasn't like shot through the roof. We haven't found like a crazy tech or strat with him yet. So yeah, he's just kind of where he's at right now, which is kind of unfortunate because I mean, Victor, where he was and where he's at now is just, it's just so sad, man. He was so good, but hey, he is where he is now. Now we have Kazuyo, the Reverie. The character's moving up. I'm going to move her up. Reason being is because one, I think a lot of people are actually starting to see that she operates better and not even just better. She can operate more outside of just Doki Doki. She can be used in other stuff. And even when we're talking about potential damage amp, she's another character that can be used for that. Some people don't understand that. Like they're like, oh, I hate sleep. But like sometimes it's like, hey, it's not even about the sleeping or keeping units down. It's about now I get an extra 25% damage because I hit you because you're asleep now, right? So like when that works, it works. I feel like Kazuyo, the Reverie, is really, really good. Again, for what it's worth, even just down to the fact that, you know, you're talking about like a unit that's even mainstay in fast and slow comps for Doki Doki, I think that just screams immense value, right? Like it just does. So yeah, that's going to be that for Kazuyo, right? Now, I think that's both Kazuyos. Dorothy the Wisher, we're going to be leaving here. Nothing really extravagant I've seen just yet. I feel like she does get alternated in for some like damage amp, like cleave setups, but nothing really like crazy to write home to, at least at this point. So I'm going to be keeping her just right there. We're not going to be shifting her. Now for sustained teams, we're looking at the next, oh my God, what is this? Chiaki. Regular Chiaki, we are going to be shifting up. I will say that when we're talking about like red sustain, like buff, damage reduction, she's still going to be really, really solid for Aurora. She can still work in Terra Matan. She's going to be good. I still feel like, again, for what it's worth, low investment, she's able to offer you a ton of value. You just have to actually build into her. She's going to be great. Absolutely great. Now, we got the homegirl Shiida, okay? Now, Shiida is actually one of those units that's like been in a really weird spot. Like she went from like not good to okay to now she's back. Like she's like going through the ringer. But I would say at this point where she currently is, in my opinion, I feel like Shiida is up in Triple S. Granted, I will say probably one of the best SSRs in the game when it comes down to DPS with like the combination of Revelation. I feel like for what it's worth, she's definitely not going to be on team comps that are faster than like a Ramoka. But when we start talking about like her potential with like utilizing things like Revelation is just all about critting. And because she has that multi-hit and she's able to ramp as well as she is, you can see her used in a lot of different things. You can use her in Doki Doki. You can use her in Aurora. You could definitely still use her in some of the shell dungeons. And that's what I mean by like even over Ramoka. I love Ramoka, but she doesn't have nearly as much usability as Shiida does, right? And so that's kind of one of those things when you're looking at like even just the fact that she has her own built-in defense break trick that then her allies can take advantage of. So she offers other utility to your team outside of the fact that she's just doing damage, right? So I think that that's something that you have to kind of consider when you're talking about a unit like that. And it definitely does make a big difference. Now, from here, who else do we have? We got Shadow Sania. Shadow Sania is going up to Triple S, right? I mean, for what it's worth, we all know she's the queen of dot. You know, for early game progression, wasn't really something that I would have recommended to really invest in, but when we're talking about in-game progression, she's cream of the crop, right? Again, when we're talking about all things dot, that's all she does, but she does it so well that, I mean, hey, dot detonation queen, you know, if you have her and you build her up and you invest in her, she's just gonna blow up everything. And yeah, that's just kind of how she works. You pair her up with Obu, Fangus, you get a ton of value from her. So yeah, definitely a unit that's going up into Triple S at this point. Now, next up we have, we got Fangus, right? Fangus is going into Double S. Just as much as his counterpart, Oval. He works extremely well, especially at this in-game spectrum. Now we do have content, like if you want to do Nico Nana Inferno, him or Oval can now be utilized as single dotters, which is kind of insane. But if you didn't pair them with, like I mentioned before, the Shadow Sania, you're talking about insane amounts of dot. I would even argue that in terms of dot, Fangus is actually a little bit better than Oval, right? Like when we're talking about like dot potential, you do have to skill up. I think it's skill 1 and it's skill 3 for him to be at his most optimal. But I will say Fangus is absolutely insane. Even just for the damage itself from the hit, he can actually deal a respectable amount of damage, and he's a follow-up character. So that's the other thing that makes him really good. Next, we have Regular Rin, okay? Regular Rin has AoE taunt. She also is going to be able to provide, for what it's worth, I feel like Regular Rin, there's like one area that I feel like she kind of would go crazy in, but like there's really nowhere that like she's being predominantly used, but there is some things that I was theory crafting, like taking her into like say for example like Shadow Flame Hoyan or Rengoku. I feel like Rin is going to shoot up in value when it comes to those two bosses, but just generally there's no like module dungeons that you really would use Rin in right now. So she's gonna are we gonna keep her here? I think we're gonna be shifting Regular Rin down to A tier for right now. Yeah, we're going to shift her down for right now. But I will say, I feel like her value is going to shoot up later. So yeah, that's that. Now, Rin the Unbowed. Okay, so Rin the Unbowed, we're going to actually be, when we're, let me think about this. Because Rin the Unbowed provides something that I think is actually pretty important, which is the fact that she has a speed up and a speed down. I'm going to be keeping her in S tier because I feel like she like is a direct counter to like things like Nico Nana, which is pretty important. Like honestly, like that's a really important dungeon to be able to do. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping her there. Again, she's just like a pure damage dealer, but she does scale off of speed. The more speed that she has over her opponent, the more damage she can do. So I think that that's actually pretty important. Now we have Tsutomu. Tsutomu is a dispel. I am going to be shifting him down. I just don't feel like there's anywhere right now that kind of gives him value. Even on auto, he doesn't buff strip first, so that kind of kills him. Like if we are able to pick our skill like order prioritization, he would be actually like much higher. But yeah, we're just gonna shoot him down. He's a DPS, can crit automatically with a skill 1. If he what is it? It's something he has to do specifically, but he does have like a built-in like crit mechanic in his skill 1, which I guess can be helpful in some scenarios. But for what it's worth, yeah, he's not giving as much value as I would like him to right now. Obero. Now, this is actually going to be like, and I'm not even going to kid you guys, I'm actually really sad in doing this. I don't feel like she's actually worth doing anything with right now. I went the extreme lengths, okay? Extreme lengths of 6-starring her. I put skill ups into her. I'm going to be putting Obero into not worth. And you guys know how I tier. You know it has to take a lot for me to put a character in a not worth. Right now, as it stands, Obero does not offer any value. Like I mean, like you can try hard and force it, sure, but dot it's her dot or her bleed. I should be more specific. Her bleed does nothing in the game right now. Like you can use it to maybe amplify somebody hitting into it with a momentum. That's about it. But man, like solo individual value, it is not worth, in my opinion. I'm gonna be just 100% honest with you guys. It just is what it is, right? So after that, we got Durandot or Turdendot, as we used to call her. Now my my fiance always like clowns me because she's like, you always mess up these names. That's like that has an accent on it, or whatever. But I'm gonna be keeping her here. Attack up, defense up, turn meter pushback. Very standard stuff. Still somewhat usable, right? Definitely value. I feel like is pretty solid. Now, next up, we have Yang. All right. Yang, I'm actually going to be shifting up to double S. I feel like his value is extremely high. Not only is this guy providing you with the crit rate up buff, he gives you an attack up buff, but then he has a skill too that actually I feel like gets underrated for what it does. But every hit, he's basically able to do something. So he has 6 hit count, which is pretty high. But what it does is 3 of those hits is going to be pushing turn meter, which is extremely powerful when we're talking about rotations on things like Doki Doki or Aurora, or if you're using him in Shell Boss Dungeon. This guy provides a ton of value. And so I think that that's something that, like, for me, when I was just kind of looking at, like, okay, what is he bringing to the table? How does he bring it to the table? That's something that's extremely valuable. I feel like for what it's worth, what he's able to do, I think, again, if you consider Gray to be really good for what he does and what he brings to the table, Yang is also up there. So, yeah, felt like it was worth the shift up. Everybody else, though, sitting in S tier, we're leaving at S tier, which is cool. Going into A tier, there's a couple of characters that I want to move up. We have Silence, okay? Silence, I'm actually going to be shifting into... I'm actually going to shift her into S tier. I'm going to shift her up. And the reason why I'm shifting her up specifically is because what she's providing, okay, is something that I think that, actually, you know what? I think it's actually more powerful than what we're giving it credit. We're going to shift her up to double S. I feel like for what it is, that forgetfulness is like really, really powerful. And that's something that I think that when we're talking about something that allows you to be able to do X content without having to think about something right now, currently, like considering that Shadow Flame Hoyan is one of the higher tiered, dungeons that you want to be farming for shells. Dude, her value shoots up a ton. Like, it does. It shoots up a ton. So she's anywhere from S to double S for me personally. The damage reflect too is also another thing. Like, so it's like so much value that she's bringing to the table. And I feel like that's something that doesn't really get to show or present itself early game. But at the later game, it definitely starts to come through to the forefront. So yeah, Silence, I'm definitely going to be giving her flowers at this point. So yeah, there's that. Now, another character we're going to actually be shifting up is going to be Vice, okay? He's been in the not worth, but there's been a lot of things that people have been able to do with him. I'm going to actually be putting Vice, for me personally, I feel like for the low investment and just even for what he's able to do, though, we're going to be putting him up here in Triple S. I actually think that for what it's worth, Vice has opened up the door for so many players. Like, he really has. He really has opened up the door for a lot of players. I feel like, again, that is just the option for a lot of people if they don't have certain things. Like honestly, even just in terms of doing the Ember track, like a lot of these team comps, shout out to Barcode, dude. He showed how powerful this character is. And I can't deny that. Like it would be insane for me to sit here and be like, oh, he's not that good. Like, no, low investment character. This dude's value is insane. You put him on a Fortissimo, I mean, you got yourself crazy levels of sustain. Again, for what it's worth, you build into the taunt, which again, taunt is constantly being underrated within this game. And yeah, he provides a ton of value for your team comp and being able to sustain. Like, so I don't want to undermine that at all. So yeah, we're shifting him up. I will say Sybil, we can shift up to A tier. I feel like she's definitely like not bad. You could definitely use her in some in-game stuff, which kind of is crazy. Like I even would say she's more valuable than Obero at this point. Granted, Obero can technically still be used for her raw damage, but I feel like just for the fact that she's this bleed unit, like her bleeds do absolutely nothing. I was like so mad about that, but hey, it is what it is. All right, so here we go. That's going to be my tiering for all the readjustments. All right, so now we're going to get into placing our brand new units, which is really, really important here because we got Hoyan, Hoden, Mio, and of course the newly added Yeli. All right, so to make this as seamless as possible when we're looking at Ho Yan. All right, so Ho Yan, where are we going to be putting her generally? I'm going to actually be placing Ho Yan. I'm going to place her in... I'm still feeling like personally she's a S tier unit, maybe a high S tier going into double S. I feel like for what it's worth, yes, she is one of the units that can help you clear things like Shadow Flame. Oh, no, I'm lying. Not Shadow Flame. Terramatan is what I'm thinking of. She can help you do Terramatan, but it does require you to have a kind of sort of specific setup for you to be able to manipulate that. She is, again, not that much of an investment for you to be able to do it either. So I think that for what it's worth, that definitely does give her a lot more value. I still personally feel like at the end of the day, she's a full invest character, more catered for PvP, but she is able to do some PvE, right? So I'm going to be placing her at S tier. Like I said, borderline double S tier in my opinion. But for what it's worth, still extremely hard hitting, one of the hardest hitters in the game. And definitely, like I said, when you're talking about like boss nuking on things like Terramatan, she's going to be up there 1,000%. So I got to give her credit for that. I will say though, Holden, in my opinion, holds a lot more value in the game, generally speaking. So I'm going to be putting him in triple S. I feel like for what it's worth, even just out of the box, Holden holds value. Now, when you start investing in him, this guy becomes insane. He's the only unit in the game with 100% pushback on a skill 2, which is nuts, by the way. And even when you're talking about like 30% mitigation in like a lot of the gear dungeons, yeah, that's still 70%. So it's still nuts. The other thing is too is his ability to strip. So he's the only other character in the game that also provides an AoE resistance down, and then he can strip buffs, right? Defense break is built into his skill 1, and he's a counter unit. So he's one of the units that I will even say, like, even just in terms of like open utility, you can build him fast, you can build him slow, and he still works, again, respectively to each content or like type of like setup he's in. But this guy is really good, right? So I feel like for what it's worth, Holden, in my opinion, is definitely going to be triple S. Mio is, again, I remember her being released. Oh, she's trash. You got Kraken. There's no reason to build her, bro. She is triple S. Like, Mio is nuts. Okay. And as a honorary Mio user, the more investment you actually put into her, the better she is. I would even say for a lot of the reasons why speed comps can work with the Remokas the way that they do is because of Mio, right? The reason why people are able to run Beotans on those comps is because of Mio. Mio is able to completely take a enemy team, move them behind her, and then redistribute and give that movement to her party. And then she then has the CC freeze, right? She has the freeze in the skill 1. She has so much like lockdown potential and movement. She's pretty insane, right? Like, she's very, very insane. I feel like for what it's worth, it's definitely a character that a lot of people, if they get their hands on her and they have the ability to invest in her at some point, they're definitely going to build her and invest in her. Even like going into PvP, which again, this isn't about, but she's good there too. So yeah, she's just insane, right? Now, Yeli, the very last unit here that was added into the game. Yeli is actually going to be another triple S unit. Right. And again, I would even say that, like, again, this is like really in no order, but like, to be honest, yeah, she is triple S. For what it's worth, she actually is one of the few units that can actually do everything in the game, right? She can be DPS and everything, like literally. Now, again, you know, for Doki Doki, slower comp, but for what it's worth, she is really, really good at taking advantage of things like Revelation, considering that she's a single target hitter. But the thing that makes her really good is the fact that she has all these extra follow-up attacks. And so that's something that I would say makes her really solid. The one thing I will say, though, is that in order for you to really use Yeli, she is a full investment character, okay? Same thing like Rosa. The only difference is that I feel like she's a little bit more usable in more areas than Rosa because of her attribute. That's it, right? But outside of that, I will say fully invested, properly built, you know, early maybe onslaught, like Fury, but later on swapping her into momentum, Yeli gets really insane, right? She's very, very insane. But in order for you to see that, she has to be fully built. Okay. So yeah, guys, that's basically going to be that for the tier list. Everything here has been shifted. I feel pretty confident in my tiering. You know, again, this is subjective to my opinion. And I'm always open to you guys' thoughts and opinions as well. Of course, if you guys hey, defer in opinion or think something different, let me know in the comment section down below. If you agree, let me know in the comment section down below. And let's have a conversation about it, man. I just love talking about different things, and everybody has a different experience. So I'm always open to hearing you guys, man. And so, yeah, we'll be live streaming. I appreciate you guys for being patient, man. Your boy, I actually was like not feeling that great going into the 4th of July. I actually had to like kind of sleep all day, but yeah, I feel much better now, so we'll probably be streaming. And yeah, if you guys want, we can talk about it a little bit. But that's gonna be that, guys. I hope that this was able to help give you some insight. We'll have some more tier lists coming in the near future. But that's that, guys. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.